Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. My mom always wanted to have some acreage. She wanted to have a farm. She wanted to raise her horse and have a nice house out in the country away from the city. So when she found the opportunity to buy 40 acres just north of town, she bought it. Took them a long time, but they eventually built a house out there. My mom and my dad built a house, and they moved out to the farm. Well, Dad passed, but Mom still lived there. She had taken the land and put it in the set-aside program because she didn't farm it, and she had rented it out a few times and just didn't have any success with that. Well, one of the things about the set-aside program was there were restrictions on what you could do with the property because they wanted to increase the bird life in the area. That was part of the set-aside program. That limited what you could do with the property. You couldn't raise crops on it because it was set aside. And you were allowed to take care of it, though. You could clean up the fence rows, mow around the edge of the property, and every 3 years you could mow the property flat just to keep the trees down so that it didn't all go back to woodlands. Well, the first time she hired it done, it cost her $300, and that was 1994, 95, and that was a pretty good chunk of money back then. Well, I had bought the house over by Union City, and I had a little tractor, and I thought, if I could mow that field for her, I could do it for nothing because, it'd be no big deal. It'd be fun. I had a tractor. I liked playing with the tractor. But my tractor didn't have a bush hog, and it was a little Farmall B. Kind of small to run a big bush hog. So one of the guys at work said, "Hey, you like tractors, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I got a tractor that you could buy." So I ended up with the 8N. The 8N also came with a grater blade and a bush hog. And there was one other thing. What other thing came with? Oh yeah, the hydro hoe. So I now had a bush hog. And I said, "Hey Mom, I can mow your field." Well, I got it early in the summer, and it took me a while to get it running, get it so it actually worked. Wasn't running 100%, but it was working. Well, I had to get the tractor over to Mom's house, so I made a trailer. Long story all on its own. Drug it over there and started trying to bush hog the field. Well, it was a long drawn out process. But I eventually got the tractor so it ran, and the bush hog ran, and I was mowing. And the last half of the field, I was actually running right along there, no problem at all. Well, I never walked the field. I knew what the field was. It had always been this 40 acres of bare ground. No big deal. Now it had big rose bushes and lots of tall grass on it and huge weeds. And I was just mowing down the stuff. That big 6-foot bush hog on the back of the tractor, it took out everything. The tractor has a 95 horsepower 6-cylinder engine, and running through the PTO, that means I got about 70 horsepower coming out the PTO. And that 6-foot bush hog, it didn't stop for anything. Once I got it up spinning, it just cut down whatever it ran over. So I was hauling across the field and thought everything was just fine. And all of a sudden, the front wheels just dropped into a hole. Evidently, a woodchuck had built a house out there in the middle of the field. and I mean a big one. The whole front of the tractor dropped into the hole. And then when that happened, I was holding on to the steering wheel and I fell forward, still holding onto the wheel. Kind of threw me out of the seat a little bit. If I hadn't been hanging onto the wheel, I'd have been back in that bush hog. And that's what I was thinking at the time. If I fall off, there's nothing to stop this. It's not a foot throttle. It's a throttle on the steering column. So when you set it, if you fall off that tractor, it'll just keep on going until it runs in and something stops it. So I'm hanging on for dear life, and then the rear wheels fall into the hole. The hole is about 20 feet across. It's only about that deep, but it's 20 feet across. I don't know what kind of animal dug that thing, but it was huge. And so when the back wheels fell in, I went up in the air again. So I had no steering, no control of the tractor. I was just kind of in the air doing a Superman like I was a motocross rider. Then the bush hog fell into the hole, and the tractor hit the other side and came up out of the hole and kept on going. I got the tractor stopped, got off the tractor, walked the whole rest of the field looking for anything else like that before I got back on it. Now, why am I telling you this story? Well, if you're thinking about mowing a field, make sure you walk it. You may think you know it. You may have seen it last year, but things change. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union without the express written permission of the parents or the legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.